Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Construct Innovate webinar series on sustainability planning and construction. My name is Jamie Goggins, and I'm a co-director of Construct Innovate, which is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation. This week, we focus on the circular economy. We have two fantastic speakers. We're very lucky to have Dr. Sinead Mitchell, who's Assistant Professor in Sustainability and Strategy at the University of Galway, and she's going to talk about circular economy in Ireland and the built environment. And then we have Janet Lynch, Associate at ARUP, who does an awful lot of work around circular economy, and she's going to talk about the work that they've done on circular economy actions with Transport Infrastructure Ireland. So we're going to go through the two presentations first, and then follow on with the Q&A session. So if you've got any questions that you would like to pose to our speakers, please put them into the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on Engineers Ireland YouTube channel afterwards. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sinead. So Dr. Sinead Mitchell, Associate Professor at the University of Galway. So over to you, Sinead.
Thanks very much for that introduction. So as Jamie already said, I'm Sinead Mitchell. I'm an Assistant Professor in Sustainability at the University of Galway, where I teach across various programs, and my area of research is related to sustainable business, sustainable manufacturing, and the circular economy. So I'm an industrial engineer by background. I'm part of a research group here at the university on advanced and sustainable manufacturing and materials engineering. So we work very closely with industry partners on solutions through various research projects. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be kicking off on a new EU project led by Patrick McGettrick's Timber Engineering Research Group, focusing on the application of underutilized wood in construction, such as reused and recovered wood. So, what is the circular economy? So these days, more people are aware of what the circular economy actually is. So just thinking about the context, first of all, of course, so we are in an environmental crisis. I'm sure you don't need to be told that we have been kind of trashing our beautiful planet. And so there's four main categories of environmental crisis that are impacting us. So these are climate change. I'm sure you've all heard about that one a lot. It's the one we hear about the most, but of course there's pollution as well. So for example, in Ireland alone, air pollution is causing an estimated 1,300 premature deaths per year. And then there's of course biodiversity loss. Ireland, we're quite poor at protecting our biodiversity historically. And the majority of habitats and on land, in rivers and oceans have been negatively influenced by our activities, with species in decline and worrying extinction rates across all types of life on Earth. And then, okay, of course, resources globally are being used up way beyond the planetary boundaries. And so this is where the circular economy becomes very important. And so this is due to a lot of our unsustainable levels of production and consumption that are happening globally. So I'm guessing that you probably all have heard of at this stage the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. So goal 12 of the SDGs focuses in on the issue of responsible consumption and production. And in Ireland, we're not doing that great at the moment. So we are, for example, the biggest producers of plastic waste in the EU, with over 300 million tonnes of plastic being produced in Ireland every year. And half of this is for single-use items. And we're quite heavily reliant on export for the treatment of a number of key waste streams. So we all need to be part of the solution to reverse the damaging environmental practices, and engineers play a major role in deciding how things are designed and manufactured, built, and how long they last, and particularly around the materials and the processes that are involved in it. And so one way for us to tackle the resource problem is to embrace a circular economy model. So what is the circular economy? So the circular economy isn't a new thing. I suppose it's a new term that's used more these days. And there's a lot of ads on the radio now, you might have heard. So there is an ISO definition, a new circular economy standard definition of what it is. So it's an economic system that uses a systemic approach to maintain a circular flow of resources by recovering, retaining, or adding to their value, which is important, while also contributing to sustainable development. So what we do now, so a circular model aims to eliminate the inefficiencies that are inherent in our traditional linear model, which is we generally take stuff from the planet, the Earth resources. We make all of the stuff that we use, and a lot of it is just disposed of. And a lot of the times the biological and technical materials are kind of smushed together, and it makes it quite hard to find future uses for a lot of these resources. So transitioning to a more circular economy can help us to maintain better management of our resources, and where biological and technological materials are designed better, and we use more and more renewable energies. So there are some general principles of the circular economy. So it's based on designing out waste and pollution, rather than what we often do now is designing in waste, even if we don't think of it like that explicitly. It's about keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible. And a circular economy preserves activities that will value energy, labor, and materials. And circular products should be more durable, and that are products that are reused, remanufactured, and recycled to keep products, components, and materials circulating in the economy. So the circular economy is a lot of things. So it's an umbrella concept. So there are many ways to be circular, as you can see here. So there are lots of terms here that Bloomsa and Brennan's article has pointed out. Created a great word cloud here of many of the used terms that are involved in the circular economy. I'm not going to go through all of these. And also there's like lots of different ways that people look at what it is, and different models and pictures of the circular economy. Many people have made different ones, with all having some sort of loops of some sort in there. So one that's used most commonly is the circular economy model from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So this shows the continuous flow of materials in a circular economy. So there are two main cycles. So the technical cycle, here the blue one, and the biological cycle, the green one. So in the technical cycle, products and materials are kept in circulation through processes such as reuse, repair, remanufacture, and recycling. And in the biological cycle, the nutrients from biodegradable materials are returned to the earth to regenerate nature, ideally. So the closer you are to the center of the loops, the better. So maintaining something in use is often much better than actually recycling it. And sometimes it can be, we think, sure, aren't we all grand because we're recycling things? However, that's not the magic answer to everything. Even though don't stop recycling, it's still a good thing. But sometimes it can be more environmentally damaging to recycle something than dispose of it. And the truth about it is for example, if we look at plastic, only 9% of plastic produced has ever been recycled. So that means 93% of it hasn't. And sometimes recycling activities can be more harmful than not recycling them. So that's because a lot of things are not designed with that in mind. So usually products aren't designed with recycling in mind. So this is an example last year that Lego published. So we're probably all familiar with Lego in Engineers Ireland here. So I don't need to explain it to you, but they did look recently at, creating bricks from recycled PET. However, when they did the environmental analysis, they found out that it did not reduce carbon emissions, and it was actually more harmful than using the fossil fuel sources. So they're looking at lots of different other options as well. It's not just that one. So when do we do the circular economy? as I pointed out already, what we do now, the linear economy, is quite embedded into everything that we do. So it would be much easier to start from zero again, but there's no reset button, unfortunately. But we are here, and part of what needs to change is our perceptions of, is it better to own things? Is that some things to think about? And are new things always better? And when we're thinking about things that we make, engineers have a big role to play here. So we first design things, then we build or manufacture them, we use them. Buildings are actually used for a lot longer than most manufactured goods, until it reaches the end of its life. So the design phase has a major influence on the total environmental impact of all life cycle stages. But it's in the early phases of the design processes that the final product's specification is defined, including what materials are used, how something will be used, or how long it will last, and what consumables and the lifetime of the solution. So measures that can be taken to prolong the use, such as maintenance, repair, reuse, remanufacturing, refurbishing, and recycling, are also generally preferable from a circular economy perspective. So there are many benefits to the circular economy. So this includes improved environmental performance. It can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 56%. It helps to reduce resource consumption, reduces waste along the entire value chain from start to finish. So what's happening in Ireland? So while we have been a laggard on climate action historically in the European Union, we have stepped up a good bit politically, especially in the last couple of years. And so we had our first climate action plan published in 2021 with climate targets to reduce emissions by 51% by 2030. But the circular economy is also linked to this. We had the first ever circular economy bill published in March 2022. So this included all supply chain stages, and the government have been making various funds available across different government departments to develop in this area, and this is still happening. So where does Ireland rank in the circular economy? How circular are we? So this is a chart here of Ireland here. This is where we are here, the circular material use rate at 2010 and 2017. So in those years, we kind of reduced a tiny bit from 1.7 to 1.6. But then in 2020, we went up a little bit to about 2%-ish. You can see here the EU average in the middle, and the Netherlands are kind of winning the game here. It is doing circularity a lot better than other countries. You can see that Ireland is the second worst country in the European Union in 2020. And then by 2021, we climbed by one in the rankings somehow, but I don't know if it was something to do with the way it was being measured. Something strange happened that year. I'm not sure if we improved or whether other people disimproved. And globally, 90% of materials are not circular. And it's a lot of stuff that is wasted and lost. And globally, the circularity rate is around 7.2%. Which isn't actually increasing currently. It's getting actually worse year on year at the moment, and it's driven by rising material extraction and use. So this year, Ireland commissioned the Circularity Gap Report for Ireland. So I'm not going to go into it in that much detail, just to mention that this has happened very recently. It was only launched a couple of weeks ago. So also this is not a perfect measure. There's not everything is in here, but it is what we're using at the moment for the baseline for Ireland. So you can go ahead and look that up. So what does it say? So we are the second highest per capita in GDP. We do have the youngest population, and material use increases are at odds with the national circular economy and our climate goals. So GDP growth is really a proxy for the environmental degradation, and for material use growth, basically, the more economies develop, the more stuff gets used up. and 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to material handling and use, and also attributed to 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress. So we need to decouple resource use and economic development, which is a big target. So according to this report, our cycling is around 2.7%. So that means that around 97% of the materials that we use are from virgin sources. And the global economy, as I mentioned already, it's 7.2%. So every year in Ireland, we are using up 111 million tonnes of materials. That's 22 tonnes per capita. And we're not really being very sustainable. So the built environment, of course, is really important part of this. And we have the challenge of providing up to 50,000 homes every year for the next number of years, while minimizing our impact. And the built environment is one of the biggest contributors, but so it's a priority sector for transformation. And a lot of the waste that's cycled in construction is often used for low value practices. So big changes are needed in this area. So it's a carbon intensive sector. Energy retrofitting is really important, but it is also emissions intensive in and of itself. So that we have to be mindful of that. And there's lots of work going on bio-based retrofitting solutions. And as I mentioned already, there's low complexity and low value in current, and there's loads of reasons for this. So I'm just going to skip over this bit because I think I've run out of time, and that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sinead. That's a great overview around the circular economy, and in particular, I suppose, what we have set in Ireland in terms of the bill, but actually how we're actually performing, which those gaps are often large, and it takes time for the economy to react to the new legislation, new practices, and so on, and new business opportunities, I suppose, that are out there to be developed. Okay, so if anyone has any questions for Sinead, then pop them in the Q&A there at the bottom of the screen, and we'll deal with those after the next presentation. So our next presenter is Janet Lynch from ARUP, and she's going to talk about circular economy and the work that they've done with Transport Infrastructure Ireland. So over to you, Janet.
Thanks so much for this opportunity to present the circular economy approach at TI. And so the slides that I'm presenting today were presented last week also at the International Roads Federation Congress by Esther Madden in TII, and myself, and Esther wasn't available for today's session, so I'm going to present these slides today. So I'm the Circular Economy and Resources Lead in ARUP Europe, and circular economy means a lot to ARUP in terms of our corporate strategy. It's one of the pillars of our sustainability strategy. We're particularly fortunate that we have a partnership with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who are the thought leaders in circular economy, and we're their built environment knowledge partners. So it's fantastic to have opportunities like this in this context also to share circular economy and innovative work. Move them on, great. So Transport Infrastructure Ireland commissioned ARUP 3 years ago around now to start to look at embedding circular economy within their activities. So TII's purpose is to provide sustainable transport infrastructure and services, delivering a better quality of life, supporting economic growth, and respecting the environment. Their function is to provide an integrated approach to the future development and operation of the national road network, light rail infrastructure, metro, and active travel and greenways throughout Ireland. So as you can see on the screen, TII construct and operate, along with its partners, the national road network, the Lewis, metro, and active travel and greenway infrastructure. They also write the standards for these assets, and these standards are exemplar in terms of built environment standards in Ireland, particularly for transport, but also they're used in a wider context throughout the built environment. And as such, those standards have significant wider influence. In terms of circular economy, what's the driver of a circular economy? And Sinead did a fantastic, presented the different drivers behind benefits of circular economy. In a transport context, our planet is running out of natural resources. The equivalent of almost 3 planets will be required by 2050 to sustain our current lifestyles. Yet we still need to provide infrastructure. We still must provide quality of life and mobility to our citizens. So what will we do? We must continue to maintain quality of life and provide infrastructure. Build on what we already do. Generate opportunities for innovation and tackle barriers to existing processes. These are principles that are benefits of and inherent in circular economy. So in delivering circularity, it may be a little bit difficult to pin down, or there may be such a wide range of options to deliver that choosing the right option may seem confusing. But in actual fact, we are already implementing many of the principles of circularity in Ireland already. And you can see them here in the NIFTY intervention hierarchy. So many of you will be familiar with NIFTY, the National Investment Framework for Transport Infrastructure in Ireland, and the intervention hierarchy shown on the screen. It drives us in delivery of all of our projects as a first choice to maintain existing infrastructure, to optimize the infrastructure that's in place, and to improve what's already constructed and in existence. Only when all of these three options are ruled out can new infrastructure be constructed. As such, TI is working to adopt a circular economy approach in the activities, programs and projects it delivers and funds. TI standards will embed circular economy principles within its standards, and procurement, inline government procurement policy will need to include circular economy requirements. In recent years, there's a raft of policy and guidance documents published at EU and national level supporting the transition to a circular economy. The first of these is the European Green Deal in 2019, which calls out a range of sectors which have the ability to transition to a circular economy and should be prioritised, and this includes the built environment. Followed by the Programme for Government, the Waste Action Plan for a Circular Economy, the Whole of Government Circular Economy Strategy. These documents support the transition of government agencies and call out the responsibility of government to lead in terms of the transition. In a transport context, the key national policy is NIFTY, and the principles of maintenance, optimization and improvement align with circular economy. In September 2023, TII published their circular economy policy and strategy. These are available on the sustainability pages of the TII website, and I'd recommend that you go in and take a look at them. And they're very practical documents that look at interpreting circular economy in the context of transport infrastructure. Oh, sorry, it's gone backwards. So this is what the cover of the documents look like. The circular economy policy sets out circular economy context in Ireland, purpose of circular economy at TII, the TI policy and strategy underpinning the TI approach, objectives of circularity, and 6 focus areas that TI has selected to focus on for transition to a circular approach. The objectives of circular economy at TI are shown on the screen. These are to reduce resource consumption, keep asset components and materials at their highest value, maintain safety and technical function of services, assets and components, This was integral feedback in systems engineering workshops that were undertaken in creation of the policy and the strategy. These were undertaken at senior level within TI and then within each of the directorates with domain specialists. And this was a key objective for TI in transitioning to a circular approach. Promote restorative and regenerative design and reduce emissions. The strategy sets out how the objectives outlined in the policy will be delivered. It links strongly the actions to TI's strategic and sustainability aims, such as the TI Statement of Strategy and the TII SIP or Sustainability Implementation Plan. Sets out the 6 focus areas and sets out the actions that TI will take between 2023 and 2025 to transition to a circular approach. The 6 focus areas for circular economy for TI were identified through barriers and opportunities workshops, and these are shown on the screen. These are life cycle assessment, materials and data, asset management, collaboration both internally in TI and externally with industry, transformation to circular systems, and procurement. The approach set out in the strategy document that TI will be taking is shown on the screen. It includes guidelines for projects and programs, and the first 2 guidelines for roads projects and greenways and active travel are available on the sustainability pages of the TI website. Education and training will be undertaken and has started with the TI's delivery partners. Standards creations and updates have started to align TI standards with circular economy approach, and a number of innovative pilot projects have been started and will be undertaken to implement the principles of a circular economy. A series of workshops were undertaken in creation of the policy and strategy with the supply chain, TI's delivery partners, local authorities and design offices, the construction industry, road users and designers. Some of the actions that TI will be taking to transition from a linear to a circular economy are shown on the screen. Life cycle data will be gathered through asset management systems for assets including ITS. Procurement guidelines will be delivered to embed a circular approach within TII's approach to procurement in line with government green public procurement guidance. External engagement was undertaken as part of creation of the policy and the strategy, and external engagement and collaboration throughout its implementation will continue. Life cycle cost assessment will be considered, and a tool is in development for this. Updates to renewal and maintenance standards are underway and will continue, and innovative materials and pavement pilot projects will be undertaken. One of the first projects, which was a case study in terms of circular economy principles, was the Lewis Finglas project. This is 4 kilometres of predominantly grass track and including 5 stations. The use of grass track in and of itself is particularly innovative and prevalent throughout the line. Circular economy workshops were undertaken with the design team and a plan created for the project. Applying a design for disassembly approach to the track in Lewis. This aligns with ISO 20887, which is the standard for design for disassembly and reuse. So we took checklists from this and applied it in the context of light rail. So taking this approach will result in a reduction in life cycle carbon emissions of 1,000 tonnes of CO2. Earthworks optimization took place with the design team, and enhanced GI was undertaken, such that the earthworks, which is taking place in an urban environment, so it's less challenging in relation to reuse, and an additional 38,000 to 40,000 tonnes of material was identified for reuse through undertaking additional GI. Circular economy metrics were included in the BIM for the project. Active travel was promoted to reduce user carbon, and nature-based solutions were adopted also. The second pilot project included in this presentation is the application of a performance-based design tool in road pavement design. So this is implementation of, it's called the Irish Analytical Pavement Design Method. So it enables the use of mechanistic instead of empirical design in pavement. It enables the use of recycled and innovative materials as opposed to the traditional approach. And so this is particularly beneficial from a circular perspective. This case study looked at 14 kilometres of dual carriageway and compared business as usual to application of a performance-based IAPDM method. So there was an 8% saving in materials for the upper layers of the road pavement, and a cost saving along the 14 kilometres of €600,000, and a reduction also of embodied carbon emissions. A number of standards, TI standards, have been updated to align with circular principles. These are particularly innovative in Ireland, and the first of these is the publication of CPC or complementary product category rules for bituminous mixtures. This enables EPDs or environmental product declarations for bituminous mixtures, this is roads material, to be compared robustly, and therefore for carbon to be used as a metric in procurement. This is a particularly circular approach. As Sinead said earlier, in the absence of evidence, we're unable to select more circular approaches robustly, and so this enables an evidence-based selection of materials on projects. So this is a very innovative standard which was published in January of this year. The earthwork specification for national roads has recently been updated to align with circular economy principles, particularly Regulation 27 and 28, and emerging policy and legislation. The bituminous mixture standard was updated 12 months ago now. Again, it aligns with circular economy principles and increases reusability within the lower layers of the road to a very high percentage of 70%. And again, this all supports the transition of each asset and each element within transport infrastructure to a more circular approach. And so all of these are to be celebrated. So that's it for me for today. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to present. And I'm just going to hand back to Jamie now for any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Janet. That's great to show the the policy, then followed by strategy, and then followed by practical documents. So it's one thing setting a policy in there, then setting a strategy was absolutely fantastic. A path to follow, but then to follow up that with the guidelines and the practical tools that are needed for the industry to be able to deliver on those strategies. So thank you very much for going through that.